Story 1. The Whisper Behind the Mirror. I signed the lease for a small top-floor apartment in an old gray brick building that had once been a bustling garment factory in the 1960s. The stairwell was narrow. The hallway a dim tunnel of flickering fluorescent lights that seemed to breathe. What caught my attention the very first moment was the floor-to-ceiling mirror wall dominating the living room. The previous tenant had left it behind without explanation. No matter how much I wiped it, a faint inner fog clung to the surface, as if something hid behind the glass. The first 2 nights passed quietly. Only the creak of an aging ceiling fan and the whistle of wind through old window frames. On the 3rd night, exactly 2 a.m., I woke to a faint sound, soft, steady, like someone whispering on the other side of the mirror. I switched on the light. Silence. Probably just the pipes, I told myself. The next morning I took photos of the apartment to show friends. In one picture, my blood ran cold. In the mirror's reflection stood a blurred female figure with long hair. Directly behind me, I scrubbed the glass and pushed the furniture back. But each night the whisper returned. Sometimes near, sometimes distant. At times a chill seeped outward from the mirror, colder than the rest of the room. At dawn on the 5th day, a line of writing appeared across the glass. Do not turn around when you hear me. The surface was bone dry. No steam. No moisture. I lived alone. Every window was locked. I spoke to the elderly night guard. When I gave him my unit number, he hesitated, eyes narrowing. He told me that in 1972, when the building was still a factory, a seamstress named Mai vanished during a night shift. Witnesses said she loved to stand before the large fitting room mirror, the very one in my apartment. Weeks later a fire gutted the floor. Yet the mirror survived untouched. Mai's body was never found. People say she never left. The guard murmured. The next night, the words were unmistakable. Each syllable drawn out. Come back to me? I set up a camera to record through the night. In the morning, at exactly 2:03 a.m., the footage shuddered violently, then went to static for 4 full seconds. When the image returned, I was visible, asleep on the couch, but in the mirror stood another figure, hair draped over half her face, motionless. A week later, at 2 a.m., every light in the apartment died at once. Footsteps, slow, deliberate, echoed across the wooden floor, as if coming from inside the mirror. The chill thickened until each breath burned in my lungs. A woman's whisper, now a rasp right beside my ear. Come closer? Against all sense, I stepped forward. The mirror no longer reflected the room. It had become a black, liquid depth. When I reached out, my fingertips sank in as if touching freezing water. Suddenly a pale hand slid out of the darkness. Fingers impossibly long. Nails scraping the frame with a screech of metal on glass. I stumbled back, chair crashing to the floor. The bedroom door slammed. The entire apartment trembled as if someone ran in circles just beyond sight. I bolted, racing down 6 flights of stairs in total darkness, carrying nothing but my phone. I spent the night at a friend's. The next morning we returned with the guard. The mirror stood pristine, its surface clear and still. My camera contained only one file, mirror_return.mp4, empty. 0 kilobytes. I ended the lease immediately. But in the new place the familiar sounds began again. Faint murmurs at exactly 2 a.m. Soft tapping on the bathroom mirror. One night. Steam coated the bathroom glass. Slowly. From the center outward. Letters formed. I told you never turn around. A cold draft brushed the back of my neck. In the reflection. Just for an instant. Long black hair slipped out of view. Story 2. The Nameless Mailbox. I moved into a fifth-floor apartment of an aging red brick building deep in the city center. The entryway was narrow. The flickering fluorescent lights in the hallway barely clinging to life. And the air carried the sour smell of damp paint and rusted pipes. Because I'd only just arrived. I hadn't registered my name on the mailbox in the lobby. The small metal plate in front of my box stayed blank. Silent. As if waiting. For the first few days everything felt ordinary. I grew used to the hiss of wind slipping through the window frames and the low moan of old plumbing. Until the third evening. When I unlocked the mailbox it swung open as if it had been expecting me. Inside lay a single plain white envelope. No address. No postage mark. Just one slanted line of handwriting. You'll love living here. I frowned. Assuming someone had put it in the wrong box. The next morning another envelope appeared. We heard you typing at 12:47 a.m. My skin tightened. The night before I had indeed been working on my laptop. Until exactly that time. On the third day came a third envelope. That blue jacket suits you. The night before I had worn a blue coat to the grocery store. No one could have known. I brought the 3 letters to the night security guard. He scrolled through the surveillance footage and finally shook his head. No one touched that mailbox during the hours you mentioned. The lock hasn't been disturbed. Walking back upstairs. I could swear I heard slow footsteps behind me. When I turned. The hallway was empty. Only the elevator groaned somewhere far below. That night I tried to sleep early. But at exactly 12:47 a.m. the kitchen window creaked open on its own. Though I had latched it tight. A sharp draft of icy air swept in. On the kitchen table, bare just an hour earlier, sat a new white envelope. Inside. Don't close the window. I like the sound of the wind while you sleep. I locked every door and jammed a chair under the handle. At 3 a.m. My phone buzzed. A bank notification glowed on the screen. You've received $1 from anonymous account. Note. We'll meet soon. Morning came. The bank insisted there was no such transaction. Yet the notification remained on my screen. Impossible to delete. The following nights the disturbances multiplied. 3 soft knocks on the bedroom door at exactly 12:47 a.m. A faint perfume. Lavender mixed with something stale. Drifting through the living room. Photo files on my phone renamed themselves to 047.jpg. As if catalogued. I slept fitfully. Always with the sense that someone stood just behind me. On the 8th day. When I returned home late. A slip of paper was pinned to my apartment door with a tiny nail. Basement tonight. The same slanted handwriting. The same unmistakable perfume. All night the elevator moved up and down on its own. Cables groaning. Even though no one called it. Near 1 a.m. My doorbell rang. long, unbroken. Through the peephole I saw the elevator doors at the end of the corridor standing open. Lights inside blinking like a silent invitation. Some irrational pull drew me out. The moment I stepped inside the elevator, the basement button lit up red though I hadn't touched it. The cabin was thick with that perfume. Lights flickered violently. In the darkness a cold presence pressed close behind me. A woman's whisper slid against my ear. "You came." The lights flared back. I was alone. When the doors opened, the basement was darker than I'd ever seen. Water dripped somewhere distant, echoing like a slow clock. At the center of the concrete floor sat a small wooden box. I opened it with shaking hands. Inside lay a stack of photographs of me, sleeping on the couch, working in the kitchen, even curled in bed. Each was taken from high above, as if from the ceiling itself. I dropped the box and bolted up the stairwell. When I reached the 5th floor, my apartment door stood wide open. The rooms beyond were pitch black, saturated with that same heavy scent. I ran into the street carrying nothing but my phone. I stayed in a hotel and called the police. They found no sign of forced entry. No intruder on any camera. No fingerprints except mine. 3 weeks later, after I had relocated to a different city altogether, a package without a return address arrived at my new place. Inside was a single sheet of paper. The same slanted hand. The same faint perfume. "Your new window faces east. Don't lock it. 12:47, as always." Story 3. Footsteps on the service stairwell. The building where I work is a mid-1970s concrete block. 12 stories of faded carpet, humming fluorescents, and forgotten corners that smell faintly of old varnish. Tucked behind the freight elevator is a narrow service staircase. Few employees know it exists. It begins in the basement's boiler room and climbs all the way to the rooftop cooling towers, a straight spine of gray concrete. Dim bulbs set every other landing. I discovered it months ago while searching for a quiet place to take calls. At rush hour, when the regular stairwell swarms with office workers, the service stairs stay silent. Cool. Almost soothing. I used it so often it felt like mine. Late one Tuesday I stayed past 10 to finish a report. The building had emptied. Even the cleaning crew had gone home. I slipped into the service stairwell to avoid the elevator's groan. My shoes echoed crisply in the hollow space. The sound bounced upward, each step returning as a faint metallic ping. Halfway down, between the 8th and 7th floors, a second rhythm surfaced, slower, heavier. Step. 3 beats after mine. Step. Always 3 steps behind. I stopped mid-landing. The other footstep stopped. I listened until my ears rang. Only the distant hum of the HVAC. I took another step. Thud. Again. Precisely 3 steps back. The hair on my neck prickled. I quickened my pace. The phantom cadence followed. Never hurrying. Never falling behind. At the final turn toward the basement door, I spun around. The staircase rose in a perfect concrete spiral, each landing fading into shadow beneath weak bulbs. No one. Relief lasted a heartbeat. Until I looked down. Across every stair I'd just descended. A trail of damp footprints glistened. Bare. Human. Each print darker at the heel. Tapering to long narrow toes. The trail ended on the step just behind me. I told myself it was acoustics. Leaking pipes. Some weird trick of echo. Still. The next evening curiosity gnawed at me. I asked Anna, a friend from accounting, to walk the stairs with me after work. We waited until the office emptied and entered the stairwell together. Our combined steps clattered irregularly, until a third cadence slid between us. Soft. Measured. Not quite matching either of us. Anna slowed. "Do you hear that?" The sound came again. A deliberate tap. Perfectly placed where a third person would be if someone trailed us. We both stopped. The extra step stopped. I whispered, "There's nobody else here." Anna's face drained of color. "There's someone," she said. Barely audible. "But I can't see them." We hurried downward. When we pushed through the basement door, Anna looked back and let out a choked gasp. The staircase behind us glistened with a fresh line of wet footprints, larger than either of ours, leading upward into the dark. The next day we told building security. They checked the cameras. No one had entered the stairwell during our entire walk. Moisture sensors registered nothing. The guard, trying for humor, said maybe a leaky pipe dripped on the steps. But the prints were shaped arches. Toes. A clear stride. That evening Anna refused to stay late. I promised myself I'd avoid the stairs. But at 10 p.m. I heard a faint echo through the quiet office. 3 slow, deliberate steps rising somewhere inside the walls. The sound came from the direction of the service stairwell. On Friday I gave in. I had to know. I waited until everyone left and entered the stairwell alone, flashlight in hand. Each landing felt colder than the last. The light bulbs buzzed, flickered, then steadied. My own footsteps rang loud and harsh. Halfway down, the familiar rhythm returned, 3 steps behind. I stopped. Silence. I forced myself to descend 2 more steps. Step. It answered. I turned the flashlight up the well of stairs. Nothing but gray concrete and trembling shadows. Yet a faint damp smell, earthy, like wet soil, rose around me. When I reached the basement, I swung the door wide and kept the light trained on the stairs. A single new footprint, shining wet, appeared on the landing above, as if pressed into existence while I watched. Since that night, the service stairwell feels alive. Coworkers whisper about strange echoes when the building is empty. A third set of steps. A breath of cold air rushing past. I no longer take that shortcut. But sometimes, when the office is silent and the elevators rest, I hear it through the concrete. Step. Always 3 beats after my own heartbeat, waiting for me to climb those stairs again. Story 4. The darkness behind the library door. I worked part-time at an old city library tucked between century-old stone buildings, their walls streaked with rain and moss. The stained glass windows had long since yellowed. And inside, the high ceilings and dark wooden shelves swallowed sound until even a whisper felt loud. My evening shift ended at 9 p.m. after the patrons left. The library sank into absolute stillness. Only the steady tick of the wall clock and the occasional creak of aging beams. My final duty was routine. Walk every room. Turn off the lights. And lock the side doors before leaving. At the far end of the north corridor stood a heavy wooden door most people ignored. The staff log carried a single faded note in slanted handwriting. Archive room. Do not use. During my first week, I hardly noticed it. But on the fifth night, as I made my rounds, I heard the soft rustle of pages turning from behind that door. Thinking someone had stayed behind, I knocked 3 times. Hello? Is anyone in there? No answer. Only the faint smell of old paper seeping through the gap. I tried the handle. Locked tight. Curiosity gnawed at me. The next day I asked the manager for a key. He looked startled. Almost uneasy. That room's been sealed for years, he said. Just dusty records. But if you insist, be careful. The following night I slipped the key into the lock. It turned with eerie ease, as if the mechanism had been waiting. Inside was utter darkness. My flashlight revealed endless shelves cloaked in cobwebs. In the center sat a single worn armchair. On it lay a brown leather notebook, already open. In dark, trembling ink it read, "Thank you for coming back." Heart hammering. I snapped the book shut and hurried out. As the door clicked behind me, I thought I heard the soft snick of a lock sliding home on its own. From that evening on, the air around the door grew noticeably colder. Each time I passed, the sound of pages turning returned, now joined by faint overlapping whispers, like a dozen readers murmuring in unison. I placed a recorder outside. When I played it back the next morning, I heard not only my own footsteps but a low male voice, clear as if spoken beside the microphone. "Keep reading." I was certain the room had been empty. A week later, rain hammered the city. I finished my shift near midnight. As I locked the main entrance, the clock struck 12. Down the north corridor, the archive door stood ajar. A thin strip of yellow light spilling across the floor, light that flickered like candle flame. I walked toward it, each step echoing through the empty library. Inside, the shelves were still, but the leather notebook now lay in the center of the floor, its pages fluttering as if caught in an invisible breeze. New words bled across the paper, letters darkening as I watched. "Sit down." A sudden chill brushed my neck. The door slammed shut behind me and locked. I spun and yanked at the handle. It wouldn't budge. Within the gloom, my single flashlight barely reached the walls. Yet dozens of phantom lights shimmered and died, as if hundreds of lamps blinked on and off in rhythm. The whispers swelled into a chorus, countless voices reading words I couldn't understand. The notebook opened again. Fresh ink scrawled across the page. "Read your name." I looked down. My full name appeared, written in a graceful, unfamiliar hand. I shouted, slamming my shoulder against the door. My flashlight tumbled to the floor, beam spinning wildly. The whispers twisted into low, rasping laughter that filled every corner. At last the door gave way. The corridor beyond lay in total darkness. No yellow light. No trace of candles. When I glanced back, the room was empty, dusty shelves undisturbed. The chair and notebook gone as if they had never existed. The next morning I told the manager everything. His face blanched. The key to that room has been missing for 3 years, he said quietly. And yesterday, I kept your set of keys in my office all day. You never checked it out. We went together to inspect the door. The lock was rusted shut, sealed as though untouched for decades. No armchair. No notebook. I quit that very day. Weeks later, whenever I entered any library, new or old, I heard it again. The faint rustle of unseen pages, close enough to brush my ear. Once, at a library across town, I froze. On the highest shelf lay a brown leather notebook, slightly open. My name written across the page in the same elegant hand.